great way to make your promotion feel credible is to have a world champion from another company make the jump across. Not only can you shout out, "Hey, we have this guy now," you can also blur the lines and start making the world of pro wrestling feel very real. In these instances, the title doesn't feel like a prop or some tin. It feels like a symbol of what the business is all about. That's why when this has happened in the past, eyes usually open in some sense. It's not always the biggest coup, but it certainly has its advantages and sometimes can change the momentum of a story entirely. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is 10 times world champions invaded WWE. Number 10, Dan Severn. It's a shame how Dan Severn is remembered in 2017. Reduced down to a man who simply wore a grey shirt that would always have a watermark around the neckline, fans still think he was incredibly dull. That simply isn't true. Never given a fair shake of the stick in the WWE or winning any gold while he was there either, Severn was actually the NWA champion when he arrived in the company. And sure, in 1998 that belt wasn't what it once was, but still, you think someone would have wanted to push that more than they did. Instigating an NWA invasion of the WWE in the late 90s, Jim Cornette rode back into town saying he wanted to bring tradition back to the sport of wrestling. This included Danny Boy, who did walk down the aisle with the NWA title around his waist, which did make him feel like a bigger deal than he would have done otherwise. On top of that, the title belt over his other shoulder was the UFC Super Fight Championship. So he was a dual title holder and also kicked ass for real in MMA. Now tell me WWE didn't do this man a disservice. Number 9, Raven. Another invasion angle. This one happened in 1997 when ECW banded together to attack the good ship then known as the WWF. Leading that charge was none other than Raven, who had the ECW championship proudly wrapped around his waist. Appearing mid-match during a bout between Little Guido and Stevie Richards, fans recognized him instantly and reacted accordingly. While he did very little, Raven basically posed and then left, it was an interesting footnote in wrestling history and did a lot to add a little something extra to ECW at the time. Plus, as fans, this all felt very exciting and like anything could happen. It's never a bad thing. Number 8, Alberto Del Rio. When Del Rio made his shock return to WWE in 2015, he was actually already a world champion. He just happened to be a world champion for AAA. Winning it as Alberto El Patron on the 7th of December 2014 from El Texano Jr., he hadn't dropped it when he arrived back at Hell in a Cell in October of the following year. This meant his arrival was twice as hitting, even if WWE didn't want you to know, because when he vanquished John Cena for the US title, he was now a dual champ. He had all the gold and then some. Given his new situation, WWE decreed that Alberto wasn't allowed to return to Mexico to drop his old belt, so he just stripped of it instead a month after all this happened. So he didn't even have to have his shoulders pinned to the mat. Gotta keep ADR strong. Number 7, Drew Galloway. When Drew Galloway resurfaced on WWE TV at NXT TakeOver Orlando, the Scot had come a long way, including being none other than the WCPW champion. Think of that! Unlike the mentioned Del Rio situation, WWE did give permission for Galloway to finish up his prior commitments, which is why he was able to return to WCPW and drop his title in a 30-man elimination rumble. Galloway even managed to make one more appearance for the promotion, where he lost to Cody Rhodes in the Pro Wrestling World Cup before cementing himself in NXT. He's now exclusive with WWE, of course, but for a while, he was all over the place. Number 6, Verne Gagne. While Verne Gagne had more than his fair share of run-ins with Vince McMahon Jr. over the years, his relationship with Vince Sr. was far better, so much so that Verne even defended the AWA Championship on a WWF event. This is why in November 1972, when Verne was amid his 9th reign as AWA Champion, he decided to hop on over to Madison Square Garden and defeat his former trainee Buddy Wolf, and yes, this was on a WWF card. This didn't stop here though, as Verne would wrestle 5 more times for his rivals, all taking place at the New York Arena, with his final one taking place on the 30th of April 1979. Isn't that nice? Goes to show there was a time in wrestling where we didn't all have to be at each other's throats. We understood how to play nice. Number 5, Tazz. When Mike Awesome signed for WCW in 2000, it set off a chain reaction that would bring about one of the most unique events in pro wrestling history. As reigning ECW champion at the time of his WCW debut, Awesome was not exactly in Paul Heyman's good books. ECW and WCW hated each other at this point, with accusations thrown both ways, but seeing the opportunity to make it work in his favour, well, Heyman took it. So somehow the decision was made to have Tazz, who was then signed to the WWE, have a match here, meaning we had a WWE wrestler taking on a WCW wrestler for the ECW Championship. But Tazz would defeat Awesome in less than 2 minutes, and now things were really weird because ECW's main prize was in the hands of someone not on their roster. Apparently no one gave 2 hoots anymore though, as Tazz would wear the belt on WWE TV, which gave Vince McMahon the chance to have him lose every match he took part in during this run. Eventually, Tazz returned to ECW, he dropped the title to Tommy Dreamer, and the world finally went back to normal. Number 4, Rhino. On the 13th of January 2001, ECW died. It was the end of an era without a doubt, but some wrestlers on the brand had caught the eye of the WWE. One of these people was Rhino, who just so happened to capture the ECW Championship from the Sandman at ECW's final pay-per-view known as Guilty as Charged. This is why when he made his WWE debut by almost killing Jeff Hardy on the 19th of March, and helping Edge and Christian retain their tag titles in the process, it was pretty awesome, and even more so as the Man Beast was wearing an ECW t-shirt. He may not have had the actual belt, but he was still the champ and everybody knew it. WWE could have done more with that, sure, but it's still very, very cool. Number 3, Harley Race. When the WWF broke away from the NWA in 1963, Vince McMahon Sr. created his own world title that today we know as the WWE Championship. However, this split didn't spell the end for the NWA Championship's association with the WWF, because wrestling rarely makes any sense. After 15 years of going their separate ways, the reigning NWA champion Harley Race would make history by defending his title on a number of Vince Sr.'s shows in the late 70s. Most of these were neither here nor there, although still somewhat incredible for what they represented, but that then all changed in September 1980. Booking a title versus title affair, Harley Race did put his NWA Championship on the line against WWE champion Bob Backlund. In short, that meant that both belts were up for grabs, so everyone and their dog actually thought they were going to see a unification. Of course that didn't happen because Backlund won by DQ, meaning both men retained their own pieces of gold. Again, because wrestling. Number 2, Chris Benoit. When the Radicals came to the WWE in 2000, it was a pretty big deal, and not only because the group had a Z at the end of their name, instead of an S. Comprising of Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn, the four had grown tired with WCW and it was seen as quite the coup to get all of them at once. The most important of these was Chris Benoit. Having defeated Sid at the Sold Out pay-per-view just 2 weeks prior, Benoit was WCW champion when he officially said goodbye to the company. Nothing was ever done about this either, so WCW was just forced to vacate the title because its champion had walked away. So when Benoit made his WWF debut on the 31st of January, it was common knowledge that this was the unbeaten WCW champion. This carried even more weight when his first SmackDown match was against Triple H, the WWE champ at the time. So he basically had the two title holders squaring off against each other. Obviously the game won, because screw you WCW, but still, everything was just crazy at the turn of the millennium. Number 1, Ric Flair. It's one thing to come into another promotion as the champion elsewhere, but it's another to build your entire gimmick around that fact. Enter 1991, and enter Ric Flair. Following the fallout from the madness that was Jim Herd's reign as the man in WCW, he pissed Ric Flair off so much that Nature Boy decided to leave, or got fired depending on who you talk to, even though he was the champ at the time. Feeling slighted by them, Flair decided to go to the WWE with title in tow after Herd refused to return the financial deposit all WCW champions had to pay when securing the title. In Ric's mind then, he owned it and he could flaunt it wherever and however he wanted. All of this led to the Real World's Champion angle, where Flair would wear the belt on WWE TV and claim he was the only legit title holder in the business. Eventually this calmed down after WCW sent a cease and desist letter, but for a time, nothing felt as real as this. It was awesome.
So that was our video. Thank you for watching. Please do feel free to click on anything happening around my head or something terrible might happen to this dog. Is that you too sweeting me, bro? Ugh. Disgusting. That's really bad.